Welcome to Just Data January, week 3. This week, I want to focus in on best practice 8, provision C, which is evaluate adherence to best practice standards. If you're already familiar with the best practice standards, you know that they are immense and wide-ranging. In many ways, they're a little idealistic compared to what we're able to implement in our courts because of funding, because of staffing, or even just because of time. If there's nothing else that you take from this Just Data January, I want to emphasize this, that even small changes in your court's practices can make a difference. Last week, I talked a little bit about the scientific method, which is a practice that really emphasizes making only 1 or 2 changes at a time, because otherwise all of our variables get confounded or confused. We really can't tell with certainty what makes the best impact. It's why the process of scientific discovery can be so slow. We all learned about that during COVID, waiting for vaccines. However, we are working with people, and those people need our help now. So 1 change at a time might seem like it's not enough. I have a few resources this week that'll help you to get started. Some of them you've already started. The first is this National Evaluation of Family Treatment Courts, self-evaluation or assisted evaluation with NPC research. Back when our grant first started, Julie followed up with all of your courts to make sure that you had completed that assessment. And then Dr. Mize-Bowers had meetings with many of those FTC teams to talk over the results. She also created a self-led review that guides you towards the pages of best practices that each question addresses. Any areas that you said no to are a great place to implement a rapid cycle test, just like I talked about last week. I've added a bunch of links in the comments area below and also in my email, and you'll also find them on the slides, which I'll attach to this email. And that's a great place for you to start looking at our website, looking at NPC Research's website, looking at the data resources page. This self-led review that Michaela made for us is really a great way to attach individual best practices and the areas, even the page numbers of the best practice document with whatever questions you might have answered no to on that NEFTC document. So it can narrow your focus down a little bit so that it doesn't seem overwhelming. Remember, you don't have to change everything all at once, but just look at the areas where you might need the most improvement or you might be able to make the quickest improvement. And that way you can have just a more narrow focus, a little bit more strategic planning. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other options for that planning process next week. Right now, I'm just going to show you one way that I might consider using to narrow down my focus when I want the whole team to have some sort of input into that process. So I'm going to use something called a liberating structure, which you've probably heard me talk about before. This is just a strategy, a meeting type of strategy to flatten hierarchies, to sort of level the playing field for everyone's ideas and thoughts, and to just have an idea to consider what can be and get out of a space where you might feel a little bit blocked. The specific liberating structure that I'd choose in this case, and there are actually several that might work as an option, but the one that I pick is called 15% solutions. So the reason that I really like this particular liberating structure is because it really goes directly with a phrase that we tell our participants often, which is progress, not perfection, right? Ideally, we would change all of the things that are not exactly evidence-based within our court system or that need to meet the best practice standards, and we do it right now, right? However, we know that that's not really possible, and sometimes we don't even have the energy for that to happen right in that moment, in that time. 15% solutions takes the idea that if we make just one little change, we shift a few grains of sand, then that can trigger a consequence that might lead to more and more change over time. And so even that small change could have a great impact. So I'm going to guide you through this 15% solutions really briefly. The first thing that I would do is have everyone get comfy and spend about 5 to 10 minutes on this writing prompt, right? So I put several different questions in here, all of them focusing on if I only had 15% of the ability to change something, if I only had 15% of my energy, if I only had a tiny little portion of what's all available, and maybe I'm just taking some of those unused bits, then what can I do, right? So what can you do to positively impact your FTC without more resources, without more authority, without any extra from what you currently have? Is there a change that you can make right now with minimal effort? And how would you know if it worked, right? So your team can think about this individually, also as a team. So what's available to the team that we could change? How would we know it worked? So we let folks write about this for a little bit. And this is a really important part of the process because most of us are not immediate thinkers. All right, now after everyone's had all of their ideas written down, our individual groups are going to move into pairs or small groups of no more than 4. Each person will share their top ideas for 3 minutes, only one person at a time, and without any feedback, but let everyone have their chance to just share. After everyone has had 3 minutes, then I like to stop and do a little pause and reflect. So give everyone just 30 seconds to sort of think over what they've heard. And then from there, we do what we call a consultation. So this is a time where each individual gets time to have everyone focus in on them, right? So maybe we're going to ask some clarifying questions as a group towards that person that had that idea. We might try to help each person focus on one particular idea that we really liked and make it more concrete. We might ask things like, is this really within the means and authority of the team? How will you test it? What might come up? Try to move away from negativity and blocked areas and instead move towards opportunities in this consultation process. Give everyone in the group an opportunity to be the focal person and make sure that everyone on the team has time to develop their ideas. This may take a while if you have a large group, or it might be pretty quick if you don't. Now, after everyone in their smaller groups has had time to develop their ideas, then we can allow some time for ideas to be presented to the group. I tend to like to have someone volunteer to present in this space because presenting to a larger group can be a little bit more intimidating. Do have folks talk within their groups to decide who and how many people might present a particular idea. You might be surprised and hear that more than one idea came up. Or, you're okay. I'm going to take you in a minute. Now we're going to allow some time for these ideas to be presented to the whole group. Take a vote or decide, maybe we're going to do them all, but we're going to try and prioritize one idea. That's the purpose here. So maybe we're going to eventually over the next year do everyone's ideas, but we want to focus in on one right now so we can make a change in a pretty reasonable time manner. And then once you've made that choice, so you've narrowed everything down using the entire group's ideas, well, now you can go back to just dated January week 2 and think about doing a rapid cycle test of this idea. So a pre-test and post-test would be perfect for determining if that change that you made moved you closer to best practices after 6 months. Maybe you have a commitment to starting court with one family-centered response to each participant every week. So this could be something as simple as a kudos for a great visit, telling the participant you saw something they did that was particularly strong parenting, giving a gift card for a family outing, or responding to a struggle with an increase in phone visits so they have more reminders of their why for doing this, right? So that might borrow on best practices 1H, 3C, 4E, 7A, and more, because family-centered practices are really the focal point of many of the best practice standards. Right? So I'm going to put together a survey that might help me to test out whether those responses or that change in responses actually increase motivation, or if adding that family-centered practice made all of the family members feel like a closer family unit. So we're trying to choose something that's within our grasp. It doesn't take any extra resources. We know that it's already within the best practices. And then we can do a little bit of testing to see if that was effective. And then next time that we do that NEFTC, well, we have a yes in that spot instead of what previously might have been a no. So when we're thinking about adherence to best practice standards, really we want to borrow on what we've already been doing, right? You've been coming to trainings, you've been interacting with other folks across the state, you've been learning from other teams and other resources, you have the best practice standards available to you, and now it's just about deciding to make a change and moving forward with it. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you're having a wonderful first month of 2023, just dated January. Bye-bye.